This video will show you how to build a simple and quick starter base that is easy to build, easy to expand. It'll work on any difficulty or threat scale, even up to 500%, and will pair well with most playstyles. Let's start by deconstructing all the nearby ruins. It's always best to begin building your base out of stone from the start. There's an exception, but we'll touch on that later. Chop down the nearby trees to clear out a space for your structure. Save the wood to make your first set of doors. Our main structure will consist of 2 adjacent rooms, each with an interior space of either 11 by 11 or 12 by 12, depending on your preference. It doesn't make a huge difference which one you go with. In this example, I'm going to go with 11 by 11. If you don't have enough runes on the map to draw from, an early stonecutter can be pretty useful here. Here's our first room. Corners optional, of course. You may notice a large amount of doors, but don't worry, the door count will end up being very useful later on. You may have noticed there's already 2 problems with this room. First, it's not very safe. Other than plain wooden doors, there isn't much in the way of security. Second, it isn't very impressive. The pawns won't appreciate living in such an ugly and dirty room. But rather than spend a bunch of resources on making the room beautiful, let's keep things minimal and efficient. For now, the daylilies are going to be a pretty big boost to our impressiveness and beauty, but they take a lot of work to upkeep. Just by adding horseshoe, the pawns will start to use the barracks as a recreation room as well. Oftentimes new players will make the mistake of thinking that the pawns will need a dedicated room for each of their needs. But ends up taking up way more resources than necessary. For the starter base, we'll stack a barracks, a dining room, and a recreation room into a single room. By putting all the impressiveness in this one room, we end up getting a nice bonus for the barracks, the rec room, and the dining room, giving a pretty good mood boost. As a little bonus, we're also going to use this as our hospital. Second room is going to be dedicated to storage and crafting, and probably more importantly, gives us a nice path to retreat if the need arises. At this point, we're still going to need better defense, and we're going to need a place to cook our food. I personally opt for the nutrient paste dispenser in the early game, but that can be swapped out for a stove, placed in the same location in either case. For now, I've gone with the stove, but later in this video, I'll show you the nutrient paste dispenser version. This hallway that surrounds our 2 core rooms serves multiple purposes, but primarily it's going to be used for security. It's a good idea to always have a place to retreat in this game, and hallways serve as both a form of obscurance and of cover. One rule of thumb I like to follow in this game is to always have a room connected to a hallway, and a hallway to a choke point. This doesn't always have to be an interior space. It works just as well to have your hallway and choke point outdoors. Hallways are also going to help keep our starter crop safe during the early game. And if the raiders are dumb enough to stop in the middle of combat, they'll start fires, but that usually only hurts them. Here's a look at our finished barracks. It's probably a little misleading to call it finished, but it shows an example of a very basic starter room that will provide a net mood boost of 8. Throw in a little bit of art, and then you no longer have to replant those daylilies. If you're like me and you find food poisoning to be a massive early game headache, maybe you just want to save a little bit of labor time on cooking, the nutrient paste dispenser is perfect for that, and fits really nicely into the starter base. That extra mood boost that we get from our barracks dining room rec room combo means that we don't have to worry too much about the penalty that comes along with nutrient paste. And 2 coolers turns this into a nice frozen room. The exhaust from those coolers feeds into our roofless chimney, and those barricades are going to stop any drop pods from landing inside. And there you have it, basic starter base. The extra doors allow for easy escape from any direction. Each one can be used as a fighting position or choke point should the need arise. Let's hope it doesn't. But let's be honest, it probably will. As you progress further into the game, one of the first things you're going to want to do is replace that passive cooler with an active air conditioner. This chimney that we already built is in the perfect position to add another cooler for our barracks. Here's a quick example of a small early game raid, just to give you an idea of how to take advantage of enemy pathing with this style of base. Hopefully this gives you a good idea as to how the doors work and what kind of advantage they provide. Even if one of the doors gets destroyed, there's always more, and they're pretty easy to replace. If you're looking to take this starter base and expand it into something a bit more substantial, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but here's one example that might help. On either side of the base, we can add more rooms, but I've opted to keep things symmetrical here by adding 2 new rooms on the west side of the main hallway. You can keep these rooms as is, as 11 by 11s, or you can split them in half, giving you 2 11 by 5s, or split them in quarters, giving you 4 5 by 5 rooms that happen to fit perfectly together. And of course, feel free to add or remove any of these doors, but I always advise that you try to lean towards more doors rather than fewer. There's one last thing to mention. I spoke earlier of an exception for when you might want to build out of wood instead of stone. If you're playing on higher difficulties, it can be important to have a structure ready before the end of the first day. I personally like using this strategy for when I'm playing on 500% threat. In this case, it can be beneficial to build out of wood first and then transition into stone as soon as possible. By building our room 1 tile smaller than usual, we can add in the stone exactly where we would have without having to replace the walls. Since I usually stick with wood doors anyway, I end up just putting them exactly where they're going to end up in the stone wall. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one.